Go ahead and get into our main movement for tonight. So when it comes to back control or controlling any position, we're going to be relying on movements to maintain that position where we are, okay? So I don't really want you to think of it like techniques. While these are technical slices, I want you to think of it just as movements. I'm going to perform these movements in order to stay on somebody's back, or in order to stay in the mount, or the knee on belly, side mount, in order to stay in the guard, whatever you want. So our primary concept, again, for back control is maintaining a chest to back connection with some type of control on our opponent's body. So when I say some type of control, that includes the hooks, and that includes what we call a seatbelt. And that's what we're gonna look at today, is the seatbelt grip primarily. We also have the Kimura, which is a lever control, but we're gonna focus on the seatbelt grip tonight. Now, we're gonna talk about our primary back attack from any top position. Now, let's contextualize this a little bit. Last week, we were talking about guard passing. And we looked at one particular guard pass that we'll use as our example here. That'll kind of segue into what we're working on tonight, that being the knee slide. I was able to pass my opponent's guard and get here to a side mount position. Now, let's say I'm on top of my opponent, and maybe my opponent does not want to be stuck underneath me. So in order to defend this, he's going to try to turn away from me. Whenever my opponent turns away and exposes their back, our chair sit is going to be the main technique we'll use. So I'm going to demonstrate the chair sit, and then we'll talk about how we do it. All right, guys? So we'll start just right here. All right, guys. So this is the chair sit. This is one of the easiest movements that we use in order to maintain the back. So we're using it here to get to the back, but we'll also talk tonight about how we can use it when our opponent's starting to escape. So for simplicity's sake, guys, we're starting here in the side mount. Maybe I'm using a really nasty crossface, forcing him to turn away from me. Or maybe he makes the mistake of turning away from me. And I want to remind everybody, this is a mistake. However, it's a mistake that even the highest level people make. Because I don't want to be stuck bearing somebody's weight down on top of me. I might want to turn away and try to get out from underneath them. So even this, while this seems like a white belt move, it is something that you will see at the highest levels. So we're just going to start one hand by the hip, one hand by the head. I'm going to allow my partner to roll away underneath me. As soon as I see somebody's back and I am not in their guard, I'm always going to get my chest connected to their spine. So it's as simple as this. I get my chest connected to his spine. Now, I want to keep a little bit of regulated tension on him. I don't want to necessarily try to roll him over because it's not going to be that easy. He has a frame here that he's going to be using to prevent that. But I also don't want to just sit behind him because he can get his back to the floor again. So it's like I'm trying to constantly keep him pushed forward like this. Again, using my chest to do that. If I turn a little bit here, you guys can see how I'm using my active toes to generate the base, to just kind of drive into him like this. He should be relatively stuck here. When he moves away, I'm not going to let him come back. So as soon as I have this position, I'm going to get my seatbelt grip. I'm going to come underneath his head, and I'm going to come underneath his shoulder. Once I have my hands locked together, and when we lock our hands together, we can just grab our fists right over top like this. We'll talk more about attacking rear naked chokes and things like that next class. But for right now, grabbing the hands together, we never want to intertwine our fingers because that's just weak, and it's also a good way to injure your hands. So we make a fist, and we grab the fist. So again, we're here. I get my seatbelt grip. Now, I'm going to slide my left knee up underneath my left elbow, and I'm going to bring my right knee behind his hip. The whole time, I'm keeping my chest on his spine, and my head is kind of like pinching down on his shoulder here. This right knee is acting as a frame, again, to prevent him from coming back, okay? If this knee is lazy, he can put his hips on the floor. So I'm going to kind of keep this knee right behind his buttocks, so that way he can't come back in. Now, once we're in this position, I need to get this foot, my right foot, in front of his hip. So to do that, depending on your flexibility, it could be as simple as just taking your foot and putting it there. If flexibility is a bit of an issue, all we're going to do is we're going to lean away from it and then bring that foot over. If I'm going against a more experienced opponent, they may keep their knee-elbow connection. So he may have his knee-elbow connection here. In which case, all we'll do is we'll lean away, and we'll start stepping and accessing that lever to get that foot into place. Again, for simplicity, we're just gonna bring our foot and pull it inside right here on his gut. So my foot comes in nice and tight. I want to avoid letting my foot linger in between his legs because he could start getting into a deep half guard, and he's accessing this lever here to start off balancing me. So I always want to keep that foot tight and against his hip to prevent his lower half from scooting out from underneath me. So now we're ready to actually do the chair sit. All of this was the setup to get us to this position here. So for the chair sit itself, I'm already sitting on my left hip. All I'm going to do is I'm going to sit on my right hip as I pull him with me. So I'm pulling him tight into my chest. I'm going to start lifting him up by pushing my foot down into the mat, almost like I'm standing. And as I do this, I'm going to start turning over and putting my other shoulder on the mat. Now notice my chest was connected to his back the entire time. At no point did we disconnect. A common mistake is when I do the chair sit, I try to lay on my back. But look what happens to our chest and back connection. It's completely ruined now. So I want to make sure I'm tight. So again, I sit on my left hip, I move to my right hip, and I just continue turning. Now, as soon as I hit the mat, we could start looking into body triangles and things like this. But I want you guys to work on attaining the hooks. So I'm going to get my feet in between his knees. I never cross my ankles because by crossing the ankles, it does not prevent him from rotating. When I cross my ankles, he can freely turn his lower half. So remember, my feet are always hooking, accessing these levers to keep him right in front of me at all times. Once we're here in this position, we're on the underhook side. We will talk about how to take him over to the other side, but we're going to stop right here for now. Alrighty, guys, let's run back. We'll go through it step by step. So, slow motion, your partner's going to turn away, and partner on the bottom, I want you to start like Coach Seth with your elbows in nice and tight like this. We call these T-Rex arms in the kids class. If I'm on top and I have like a really nasty side mount right here with like a super crossface, I can't actually do the chair sit. I am not able to do that because he has an underhook. Okay? So, person on the bottom, we're starting elbows tight. I'm going to let them turn away from me. As soon as I see that back exposed, I get my chest, I connect it to his spine. I'm making sure that I get my seatbelt grip. And now from this position, I slide my hips up towards his back. Nice and tight. My left elbow is on my knee. My right knee is framing behind his hip. I'm going to bring my right foot, set it on the mat, and make sure I'm pulling him in. I'm going to rock him over to the other side, getting that top hook in, and we're done. I'll demonstrate again from another side, a couple angles, so that way you guys can see more of the footwork. Let's go from the back here. So he turns away, making sure I'm on active toes, pushing him forward, slide in, step that foot over, rock over to the other side, and then immediately get the hooks. I'll do once more without talking. Let's do from, man, these stink bugs are just on one today. Get out of here, dude. All right, we'll do one more from this side. Alrighty, guys, so this is our primary back take from the top position. Knee on belly, side mount. We'll detail how we can use this movement from those positions as well. For right now, we'll keep it simple. Our opponent turns away. We get our chest to spine connection with the seatbelt and start taking them over with the chair sit. Does anybody have any questions? Does anyone need to see it again? 1, 2, let's go. All right, guys, so does anybody have any questions on the chair sit so far? We're going to talk about some extra details and try to really make this a strong movement that we can utilize. So I want you to think of this kind of like a trap. As soon as your opponent turns away, they should spring the trap of you kind of latching onto their back. And then once you're there, that should be it. Like their doom has been spelled out, right? So I don't want to sort of be gingerly with how I kind of walk up to them and pull them into me. As soon as they turn away, I spring into action and immediately get into that seatbelt position. So let's talk about a couple of little details that we can add in here. First, if my opponent has a good knee-elbow connection, which any good grappler will do this, and I'll explain why, meaning knee elbows are kind of touching. The reason they're gonna wanna do this is because they don't want me to get hooks. Because when I get hooks in, it's, again, sort of the end of everything. I'm gonna start submitting them and I'm in a really powerful position. So in order to deny me hooks, they're gonna keep their knees and their elbows close to make it difficult for my foot to come in and get into a hook position. So what we're gonna do is, once I'm in this spot here, if I notice that their knees and elbows are close together, all I'm gonna do is start to lean up towards his head, using my underhook to kind of pull this arm towards me. And now I'm gonna take my right foot and I'm simply gonna step on this top leg. And now, as I step on this top leg, I can start pushing it open to get my foot back to the mat where I wanted it to be all along, okay? So, again, I've gotten into the seatbelt position. He closes his knee and elbows. Once I slide up here, if I just start stepping over, this is not gonna work. So again, I lean, step, push it open, and then come right back to where I needed to be in the first place. So I want you guys to play around with that a little bit. Have the person in front close up the knee and elbow space. This is a good reaction to have. Deny them the hook, forcing the back person to push it away to get that foot to the mat. So the last little thing, guys, that I want to sort of correct here is when I'm actually doing the chair sit motion, some of us are letting our head come above their head. And what that would look like is this. As I start to roll them over, we'll rotate a little bit here. My head is above Coach Seth's head. The problem with this is, number one, my chest is no longer on his back. So I've already started to lose this position. And number two, it's gonna be very easy for him to escape now, because if he can get his head and shoulders to the mat, he's just gonna grind me off of his back like I'm a piece of bubble gum on his shoe. He's just gonna use the mat to kind of like scrape me off. So remember what we did before we took them over. I was kind of using my chin to bite down on their shoulder right here. As I bring him over, I'm keeping my chin in this position. It's almost like I should be able to talk to him as we're going. If I let my head start coming up here, I'm losing the position. So I'm nice and low as I take him over here. All right, guys, and now once I'm in this position, we could start immediately looking for arm traps, body triangles, all these sort of advanced back control movements. But for simplicity's sake, I just want us to focus on getting those hooks in, just like this, okay? Both hooks in the thighs. All right, guys, so we're gonna play around with the knee and elbow connection. Focus on keeping that chin sort of chomped down on their shoulder, just to ensure that you're staying like as tight as possible. I wanna form to their body, okay? My body should kind of envelop them when I'm trying to attack the back. Okay, guys, any questions? Let's do one quick round of this, and then we'll talk about how we can do this from some other positions. 1, 2. All right, guys, so thankfully we have some really, really good questions here. All right, so we have some really good questions, and namely, it's about maintaining your base when you're trying to open up the knee-elbow space. Alignment is our overarching principle in jiu-jitsu. That comprises base, posture, and structure. I'm trying to maintain those attributes on myself while trying to take those attributes away from my opponent. So the key detail that a lot of us were missing when we were doing our chair sit, if we rotate this way, when I'm in this position, as I slide forward and get myself into the chair sit position, I'm looking to get my elbow on top of this knee. This provides me, number one, with base. If he closes that knee elbow space, I now have base to lean. If my elbow is just floating out in the air, as I lean, I start to fall onto my hip, and he starts to come up. If he starts to come up into the turtle, that's fine, because we're gonna deal with the turtle, right? We have ways to deal with the turtle. But I wanna maintain my base, posture, and structure at all times. So if I can get my elbow on top of this knee, not only will it maintain my base, but also it's going to maintain a tighter, direct control around his body. And direct control just means I'm using a seatbelt in this case to directly control his rotation, as opposed to using a lever to control his rotation. So by keeping my elbow on the knee, I'm creating a tighter loop around his head to make it more difficult for him to get his head to the floor if I'm here. If my elbow is out like this, there's this big loop that he can start to slide his head out from underneath and get out. So I'm always looking to keep the elbow here, high up on the knee. Makes it very tight, okay? And this is gonna solve a lot of our issues that some of us are having with the base and the feeling like you're off balance when you're trying to push that knee open. So again, knee on the elbow. We're gonna work on this, but I wanna just touch on one more quick note, and this is not gonna be anything new. It's just gonna be how we can do this from other positions, and that sounds like an entirely separate lesson, but here's the good part. It doesn't matter what top position I'm in, when my opponent turns away, we're always going to chair sit. So we were in the side mount, they turned away, chair sit. Let's say we're in the knee on belly, okay? Maybe he doesn't like being there. He turns away, here's his back, chest to spine, seatbelt, there's the chair sit. Let's say we're in the mount. He doesn't want to be here. He tries to turn away. Chest to back, seatbelt, chair sit. And this one's even easier because I'm already one step ahead. I already have this foot stepped over his hip, okay? So it doesn't matter what top position I find myself in. Anytime they turn away from me and they create back exposure, I'm going to chair sit, okay? Because I understand our primary concept of back control, maintaining a chest to spine connection. So just one more time, I'll run through these other options. So let's start with the knee on belly. Person on the bottom, you're gonna try to get away from them the wrong way, right? And we should remember, guys, we never turn away from people in jiu-jitsu, but when he does, I drop, and he's sprung the trap. I immediately launch into action, and I take him over. If we look at the mount, and remember, guys, this is a nitpick, but anytime I go to mount, even if I'm drilling, I never do this. This is a great habit to get into if you want to always be stuck in half guard. If I'm just drilling the mount, I always slide my knee over his belly, okay? I don't care what you're doing. If you're in class and you're drilling the mount, you slide that knee over the belly and get to the mount. I'm here in the top position. He wants to get away. I let him go, and I get into the chair sit position. Take him over and get my hooks in. So feel free to play around with trying the chair sit from these other positions. We're also gonna focus on getting that knee and that elbow nice and tight here to create a stronger loop and help us maintain our base so that we can push open the knee-elbows connection. Okay, guys, does anyone have any questions? We'll do this last round on the chair sit, and then we'll get into drilling. 1, 2, let's go.